The rain had a rhythm that night soft, steady, and strangely comforting. It tapped against the windows of the small house on Willow Lane, where Emma sat with a cup of tea that had already gone cold. The living room light cast a warm glow around her, but she barely noticed. The quiet had become her closest companion. She watched the raindrops race down the glass, following their unpredictable paths. Sometimes they merge, sometimes they drifted apart like people, she thought. Maybe like her and Ryan, her brother too. Ryan was in the next room, tuning his old guitar. The familiar sound floated through the doorway, filling the house with a calm she didn't realize she needed. Music had always been his world. Even when life got messy, Ryan found peace in the strings beneath his fingers. Emma admired that about him. He was the kind of person who could turn silence into something beautiful. But tonight, there was a hesitation in his playing, a pause between notes that carried unspoken worry. She leaned back on the couch, closing her eyes. Life hadn't turned out the way she once imagined. There had been dreams, once small ones, quiet ones. A bakery of her own. A tiny place with warm lights, fresh bread and laughter. But after their parents passed away, she chose to stay home, to take care of Ryan, to keep what was left of their family together. She didn't regret it. Not really. But sometimes, when the nights grew long, she wondered what her life might have been if she had let herself want something more. Emma. Ryan's voice broke through her thoughts. She opened her eyes. He stood in the doorway, guitar in hand, with that same restless energy she'd noticed all week. His usually easy smile was nowhere to be found. "You okay?" she asked gently. He nodded, then shook his head. "I don't know, I feel like something's coming, you know? Like change. But I can't tell if it's good or bad." Emma smiled softly. "You've always said that before something new happens." "Yeah," he said, glancing toward the front window. "But this feels different." Before she could ask what he meant, the sound of a car pulling up outside made them both look toward the driveway. Headlights swept across the room, scattering shadows on the walls. Ryan's expression changed instantly. There was surprise there, mixed with something else Emma couldn't quite name. "Are you expecting someone?" she asked. He hesitated before answering. "Maybe." He set the guitar down carefully, like it was something fragile, and walked toward the door. Emma followed, curiosity tugging at her, like a thread she couldn't ignore. When Ryan opened the door, the rain rushed in with the night air, and standing on the porch was a young woman with dark hair pulled into a messy bun and a tired smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Lily," Ryan breathed, his voice softer than Emma had ever heard it. Emma had heard the name before Ryan's college friend, the one who used to visit during holidays. She hadn't seen her in years. "Hi, Ryan," Lily said, brushing raindrops from her coat. "I didn't know where else to go." Emma stood quietly behind her brother, unsure what to say. Lily's voice carried both warmth and weariness, like someone who had walked a long way without knowing if they'd find a place to rest. "Of course," Ryan said quickly. "Come in." Lily stepped inside, her eyes adjusting to the light. She looked around the room, and when her gaze met Emma's, she offered a polite smile. There was kindness there, but also a certain sadness, as if she was holding on to something she hadn't spoken about yet. "I'm sorry for just showing up like this," Lily said, setting her wet bag down by the door. "It's been a strange week. I just needed to see a familiar face." Ryan nodded. "You don't have to explain." Emma watched the way her brother looked at Lily, careful, yet full of something unspoken. It was a look she hadn't seen in a long time. Not since before life had become a series of responsibilities and quiet routines. The three of them sat together for a while, talking about old times. The conversation drifted between laughter and silence. comfort and nostalgia. As the night grew darker, Emma noticed how Ryan's voice softened when he spoke to Lily. How the space between them seemed to hum with quiet understanding. It wasn't romantic, not yet. But it was something. Something that carried the faint echo of what could be. When Lily finally stood to leave, Ryan offered to walk her to her car. Emma stayed by the window, watching as they stepped out into the rain. Their voices were muffled, but their body language spoke volumes: hesitation, tenderness, memories rising to the surface. When Ryan returned, he didn't say much. He just smiled faintly, as if holding on to a secret that had just begun to unfold. Emma didn't ask. She simply poured him another cup of tea, and the two of them sat together in the soft hum of the rain, both lost in thoughts they couldn't quite name. Outside, the storm began to fade. Inside, something quiet had begun, a feeling neither of them yet understood. A single night. A single visit. That was all it took for everything to start changing. The morning after Lily's visit, the world felt quieter. The rain had stopped, but its memory still lingered, tiny droplets clinging to the window, like whispers of what had passed. Emma moved through the house, making breakfast, listening to the soft creak of floorboards beneath her feet. Ryan hadn't come downstairs yet. She knew he'd been awake late. She'd heard his guitar again long after midnight. As she set 2 cups of coffee on the table, Emma's eyes fell on the photo frame near the window, an old picture of Ryan and Lily, taken years ago at a summer fair. They were both younger then, carefree. Their laughter caught mid-air. Emma remembered taking that photo. She hadn't realized it at the time, that something had been blooming between them even then, quietly, naturally. Like sunlight finding its way through leaves. It was 6 years ago, during one of those rare summers when everything felt alive. Emma had just returned home from her part-time job at the bakery, and Ryan had invited a few friends over from college. Among them was Lily. Emma remembered that day as if it were painted in soft golden tones. Lily had arrived carrying a tray of homemade cookies, her laugh gentle but contagious. She wasn't loud or showy, just easy to be around. The kind of person who could make silence feel comfortable. Ryan had been his usual self that afternoon, relaxed, confident, charming. But around Lily, Emma noticed something different. His words slowed, his eyes softened, his music somehow gentler. They spent that whole afternoon in the backyard. Ryan played his guitar while Lily hummed along, her voice light as air. Emma sat nearby, pretending to read, but in truth, she was watching something unfold, something that felt pure and unspoken. She remembered one moment clearly. Lily had dropped her cup of lemonade, startled by a bee. Ryan had laughed, picking up the cup and teasing her about being afraid of small things. She'd rolled her eyes, smiling, and said, "Maybe small things matter most." That line stayed with Emma. Even now, years later, she could still hear Lily's voice saying it. In the months that followed, Lily became a familiar presence in their lives. She'd visit often, bringing new songs, stories, and that quiet spark that seemed to wake something inside Ryan. Emma had never seen her brother so alive. His music changed, warmer, fuller, more open. He began writing late into the night, and though he never said it aloud, Emma knew who had inspired those melodies. That life, as it often does, found a way to drift them apart. After graduation, Lily got a job offer in another city. It was everything she had worked for, an opportunity she couldn't refuse. Ryan had encouraged her to go, even helped her pack. But Emma saw the heartbreak hiding behind his smile. Their goodbye was quiet. No promises, no grand gestures. Just a long look that said everything words couldn't. For a while, Ryan tried to stay in touch, messages, short calls, but distance has a way of softening even the strongest connections. Eventually, the calls stopped. Emma watched her brother change after that. His laughter came less often. The music that once filled the house became rarer. He still played, but the warmth was gone. The songs turned into echoes of what used to be. She remembered finding a letter once, tucked between his music sheets. It wasn't signed, but she knew Lily had written it. The words were simple. Some goodbyes are not forever. They just wait for the right time to return. Emma never told Ryan she'd seen it. But sometimes, when she caught him staring out the window on rainy days, she wondered if he was waiting for time to return something it once took away. Now, years later, Lily had appeared again on a rainy night, standing at their door like a memory stepping back into the present. Emma poured the coffee and looked toward the staircase. She thought about how time could stretch and bend, how people could change yet still carry the same light within them. When Ryan finally came down, he looked both restless and peaceful, as if his heart didn't know which way to lean. She said she might stop by again, he murmured, sitting down. Emma smiled faintly. I thought she might. He hesitated before speaking again. It's strange, seeing her after all these years. It's like no time has passed, but everything is different. Emma nodded. That's how life is. The heart remembers even when the world moves on. They sat in silence for a while, sipping their coffee. Outside, the sky began to clear, revealing thin lines of sunlight breaking through the clouds. Ryan glanced toward the window, then at his guitar resting against the wall. Maybe I'll start writing again, he said softly. Emma's smile deepened. You should. And in that moment she realized something. The past wasn't a place to stay, it was a quiet echo, reminding them of what still mattered. That night had brought Lily back into their lives. That the story between the three of them had started long ago, in laughter, music, and small moments that had never truly ended. Soft cliffhanger. As Emma watched her brother strum a gentle tune once more, she felt the air shift around them, like the past had found a way to breathe again. The following week unfolded slowly, as if time itself was taking careful steps around old memories. The days grew brighter, but the air inside the house still held the softness of that rainy night. Emma noticed small changes in Ryan, quiet ones that spoke louder than words. He started waking up earlier. The guitar, which had long gathered dust in the corner, now rested on the couch, strings freshly tuned. The house once again filled with faint melodies, unfinished but hopeful. Lily hadn't come back yet, though she'd sent a message a few days earlier thanking Ryan for listening that night. Emma saw his smile when he read it, a smile that carried relief and something deeper, something unspoken. On Thursday evening, Emma stopped by the local grocery store to pick up a few things. It was one of those early spring days when the air smelled faintly of new beginnings. She walked through the aisles slowly, half lost in thought, when she heard a familiar voice behind her. Emma. She turned around. Lily stood there, holding a small basket and looking just as surprised. For a moment they both smiled awkwardly, like two people meeting in a dream they weren't sure they remembered correctly. Lily, Emma said warmly. I didn't expect to see you here. I didn't expect to be here, Lily replied, a small laugh escaping her lips. I moved back last week. For work this time. And maybe for a bit of peace. That's good to hear, Emma said. Ryan mentioned you might visit again. Lily's expression softened. I wanted to, but I wasn't sure if it would be too soon. Emma tilted her head slightly. Sometimes waiting too long makes things harder. There was a pause, a quiet, understanding kind of silence that said more than polite words ever could. Then Lily smiled. Tell Ryan I said hi? Emma hesitated only a moment before saying, Why don't you tell him yourself? That evening, when Lily came by, the sunset painted the walls in soft orange light. Ryan was in the living room, strumming a gentle tune when he looked up and froze. Lily. His voice was steady, but Emma noticed how his fingers tightened slightly on the strings. "Hi," Lily said, her tone calm, familiar. "I ran into Emma earlier. I hope it's okay that I stopped by." Ryan set the guitar aside and stood. "Of course it is." Emma watched from the kitchen doorway, sensing something delicate unfolding between them, a kind of quiet recognition that comes only from people who have shared both laughter and silence in another lifetime. The three of them talked for a while about work, the town, how little and yet how much had changed. The conversation flowed easily, though beneath it ran an undercurrent of emotion. Neither Ryan nor Lily seemed ready to touch Dot as night settled in. Lily stood to leave. Ryan offered to walk her out again. Emma stayed by the window, as she always did, watching the two figures step into the cool evening air. Outside, the streetlights glowed softly. The world seemed still. Ryan and Lily stood near her car, talking quietly. Their voices didn't carry, but their expressions did, gentle, uncertain. Deeply human. Lily looked up at the sky, then back at him. Her lips moved slowly, saying something Emma couldn't hear. But Ryan's small nod told her it was something that mattered. When he came back inside, his eyes lingered on the door a little longer than usual before turning toward Emma. "She's moving back," he said finally. "She took a job at the community center." Emma smiled faintly. "So fate decided to bring her closer this time." Ryan gave a small laugh. "Maybe it's coincidence. Or maybe," Emma said softly, "it's the right time, like her letter said." Ryan looked at her, eyes thoughtful. "You remember that?" "I remember everything that made you play again," she replied. He didn't answer. Instead, he sat back down, lifted his guitar, and began to play. The melody was gentle, nostalgic, yet touched with hope. Emma closed her eyes and listened, letting the notes drift through the room like pieces of an old memory finding their place again. Later that week, Lily visited once more, this time in daylight. She brought a box of old sheet music they'd written years ago. The pages were yellowed, the ink smudged. But when Ryan flipped through them, he smiled. "I thought these were gone," he said. "I kept them," Lily replied softly. "Some things are hard to throw away." They sat together at the piano, quietly working through a melody they had once started but never finished. Emma watched from across the room, not wanting to interrupt. There was no grand gesture, no confession, no sudden rush of emotion. Just two people reconnecting through the simple act of creating something together. Something that belonged to both the past and the present. The afternoon light touched their faces, and for a brief moment, everything felt whole again. When Lily left that day, she turned to Ryan and said, "It's strange how time doesn't really take people away. It just changes the way we find them again." Ryan nodded slowly. "Maybe that's how it's supposed to be." After she left, Emma found her brother standing by the window once more, guitar in hand, the softest smile on his face. Somewhere deep inside, she felt it too, the quiet, gentle truth that love doesn't always fade. Sometimes it just waits, until the heart is ready to remember. Spring deepened into early summer, painting the town in gentle color. The trees along Willow Lane bloomed with soft green leaves, and the air carried the scent of fresh rain and new beginnings. Inside the little house, Emma watched sunlight spill through the kitchen window, lighting the dust that floated like gold in the air. She could hear Ryan's guitar again, steady now, confident, full of quiet life. The music had changed. It no longer sounded like longing. It sounded like peace. For weeks, Lily had been coming by on weekends. She and Ryan worked on a few songs together, laughing over old memories, rediscovering a rhythm that had never really disappeared. Emma stayed nearby, usually baking or reading, pretending not to listen, though in truth, She always did. One evening, Lily brought dinner, her grandmother's recipe for homemade soup. They ate together as the sky darkened outside, the conversation easy and full of soft laughter. Yet beneath the comfort, Emma sensed something waiting to be said. Something that had lived quietly between Ryan and Lily for too long. After dinner, she excused herself to the porch, leaving the two of them inside. The soft hum of their voices floated through the open window. She didn't mean to listen, but when the tone of Ryan's voice shifted low, sincere, she looked up. "I never told you," he said, "how hard it was when you left." Lily was silent for a moment. "I think I knew, but I told myself it was easier that way, for both of us." Ryan shook his head, his expression gentle. "Maybe, but I stopped playing after you left. It wasn't the same. Everything I wrote sounded unfinished." Lily's voice trembled slightly, though her words were calm. "I didn't mean to hurt you, Ryan. I just needed to figure out who I was. I thought time would help me forget." He smiled faintly. "Did it?" Lily looked down, her fingers tracing the rim of her cup. "No, time didn't make me forget. It only made me understand." Emma couldn't see Ryan's face clearly from where she sat, but she heard the pause that followed, the kind of silence that feels like two hearts deciding whether to speak or stay safe. Then Ryan said quietly, "I never stopped caring, Lily. I just learned to live around it." There was no grand confession, no rush of emotion, just truth, spoken with the kind of honesty that comes only from years of waiting. Lily reached across the table, resting her hand over his. "You were always someone I could come back to, even when I didn't know where else to go." That moment lingered tender, fragile, and real. When Emma finally stepped back inside, she found them sitting in that same quiet understanding, the air around them softer somehow. She smiled gently. "It's a beautiful night," she said, breaking the stillness. "You should play something before it ends." Ryan hesitated, then nodded. He picked up his guitar, and Lily moved closer, humming softly as he began to play. The song was new, yet it carried the weight of every season that had passed, the sadness of what was lost, the hope of what remained, and the peace that comes from acceptance. When the last note faded, no one spoke. The silence was enough. Lily stood, her voice calm but filled with emotion. "I should go," she said softly. "But thank you for the music, for the memories, for everything." Ryan looked at her, his smile gentle. "You'll come back?" Lily hesitated, then nodded. "If you want me to." He didn't answer right away, only reached for her old notebook, the one filled with half-written lyrics they'd once worked on together. He placed it in her hands. "Finish it," he said, "even if it takes another 6 years." Her eyes glistened, but her smile was warm. "I will." When she left, the night outside was calm and starry. Emma and Ryan stood by the door for a while, watching her taillights disappear down the quiet street. "She still means a lot to you," Emma said softly. "She always will," Ryan admitted. "But maybe that's not the point anymore. Maybe it's not about getting something back. It's about remembering what it gave me." Emma nodded. "That's how you know it was real." He turned to her with a grateful smile. "Thank you for always staying, for keeping the music alive when I couldn't." Emma's eyes softened. "You would have found it again eventually. You just needed a reason." He looked down at his guitar. "I think I found one now." Later that night, Emma sat by the window again, listening to her brother play. The melody floated gently through the air. Peaceful, whole. She thought about everything that had happened. The rainy night, the visit, the quiet conversations that had reopened old doors. Life, she realized, wasn't about holding on too tightly or letting go too soon. It was about knowing when to simply let things be. Lily's return hadn't just changed Ryan's life. It had reminded both of them that love doesn't always end with a promise. Sometimes it ends with understanding. And sometimes that's enough. As the last notes of Ryan's song faded into the night, Emma whispered to herself, maybe that's what healing sounds like. Outside, the moon rose high above the quiet street, gentle and steady. The same moon that had watched over that one night long ago. But now everything felt different. Lighter. Because some nights don't just change your life. They help you see it for what it truly is. Fleeting, fragile, and endlessly beautiful.